good. Yeah, we had a solid foundation of scales, intervals, chords in the first episode, and now we're heading on into learning about rhythms.
Okay, we have to discuss rhythms, and a lot of folks don't realize that there's a system here too. So what we want to show, what Tim and I want to show you, is the system. For instance, let's take the numbers at the beginning. When you see a number, two numbers, they all have meaning. And I like to start with 4-4.
Yes.
That means, go ahead and explain what that means, Tim. Go ahead.
Well, it's known as common time because you will see it a lot as you flip through the hymnal. You'll see that 4-4 there. And in this type of time signature, known as simple, though that's not vital, the top number tells you how many beats are in the measure, and the bottom number tells you which note gets the beat.
Yes.
But there's a little bit of what I like to jokingly refer to as a secret code. The 4 stands for a quarter note, which is a quarter of a whole note, and I'll be showing these on the screen so you see what they look like. And then the whole note gets that entire measure because it has 4 quarter notes in it, just like a whole dollar has 4 quarters in the dollar. So the quarter money is very much like the quarter note because it's a fourth of the whole.
Well, thank you for the illustration, because that's what people don't realize. They say, I could never learn this. You probably already know it. If you compare it to money, or think of the 4 and dividing 4, then that whole note, that big round circle, gets 4 counts. So if you're counting it, 1, 2, 3, 4 for that note. And those notes come all the time. Okay, so then we've got to go from there. Okay, we want to divide it up. So let's go to what we call a half note. And what do you do to make it a half note? It's a round circle again, open circle. What do you do to make it a half note?
It needs to have a stem on it. That's what makes it distinct from the whole note, because the circle part of the note looks very similar, but the half note has the stem, that line that proceeds up from the right or down from the left, but the whole note does not. It's just the circle, no stem on it.
So it has exactly half of the whole note.
Exactly.
Half and whole. You can think that. You don't have to be a magician or a musician even to think that you got half of the whole. Okay? So then we got to go to another note. We're going to divide that whole measure that we have 4 counts in to 4 separate notes. What would they be like?
And those are the quarter notes, and they look like a half note in that they have the stem on it. However, instead of that hole in the middle of the note is filled in, or it's solid.
Right, exactly. So one other thing you probably ought to mention right here, whenever you put a dot behind a note, it adds the value, half the value of the note to the note.
Yes.
So if you have a 4-4 time, which we're still in, and we're going to talk about different ones, but you get 4-4, you get a half note, that circle with a stem on it, put a dot behind it, it gets 3 counts, half of the half note.
Yep, because the half note is 2 counts.
Yes.
Half of 2 is 1.
Right.
And then 1 plus 2 is 3.
3, so you got it.
Easy peasy.
So you got all those notes. Okay, so then we go on further. We want to divide that measure into more. Say if we want to divide it for more than 4 counts. How can we do that?
Well, you probably noticed by now we keep cutting things in half. So the whole note, we cut it in half and we got 2 half notes. We cut a half note in half, we get 2 quarter notes. You can cut a quarter note in half, and also notice the pattern, whole to half to quarter. So what would be the next fraction down? It's an eighth.
Yeah.
So the next note is an eighth note. Looks much like a quarter note. However, it has, if it's by itself, it has a thing we call a flag, because it kind of looks like a flag hanging off. However, many times they're in groups of 2 or more, and then there's a thick, solid line that connects the top or the bottom of the stems, depending if the stem's going up or down. It connects it together, and it's kind of like in the ceiling of a house where sometimes you'll have beams up there. It's called a beam. And that's what connects the 2 eighth notes together to show how they're different from quarter notes. So you want to look for either the flag or the beam so that you know it's an eighth note and not a quarter note. And there'll be just 1 flag or 1 beam for an eighth note.
So if you want to divide it now, say we're going by mathematics, you want to divide it again, what do you do?
Well, we can cut the eighth in half, and now it becomes a 16th.
Yes.
And it looks like an eighth, however, it'll have 2 of those flags or 2 of those beams on it, depending if it's on its own or if it's connected to another 16th.
Yes. And then quite often you see that, and people will say, well, I don't understand this, but you can very quickly, that you have an eighth note with a dot after it, and then that 16th note. And you see that
very common.
That's, and you sing songs of King of My Life. There it is.
Yep, there it
now
is.
you probably already know that song. Standing on the promises of Christ. There they are. It just keeps coming back. There's that dotted 8/16. You already knew that song. Now you learn to recognize what it looks like. So every time you see that, you've got that rhythm.
Good.
Now, then we probably need to go, and maybe it's go over. I don't think we're getting too far, because that is simple time. You mentioned that. Now we get complex time. What's the difference?
Instead of being in groups of 2 in simple time.
Yes.
So we had those 4 quarter notes in 4/4 time. Each of those can cut into 2 eighth notes. So 1 and 2, and it has that like walking feel, the foot up and down, and feels very much like walking. You can have it in groups of 3.
Yes.
And instead, you'll have a feel of skipping. So you're really excited, and you're like your kids are excited to see you, and they come skipping because they're so excited to see you. That's the feel of the compound or complex compound time. And what you'll have is there's not a number for a dotted note that we talked about earlier. So instead, the numbers you'll see are those divided notes. So 6/8, you'll see 6/8 notes. However, you have to think of them in groups of 3 instead of the separate eighth notes, because they're more commonly felt in 3, giving us that kind of skipping feel.
Yes. And where that is, when you see the 6/8 at the beginning of a song, or 9/8, or even 12/8 sometimes,
12/8, yes.
then you know you look at the 8 at the bottom, because that's telling you that the 8 tells you it's an eighth note. See, there's a reason we call it an eighth note.
Yes, exactly.
It's in 1/8, and so now it's an eighth note. It's going to become our value instead of the quarter note where we had the 4 before. Now we got the 8th, which is half of the 4.
Yes.
Am I right? Yep. Okay, divided in half, and so now you always divide the top number by 3.
Yes.
Because you're going to be doing it in 3s. Da 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or blessed assurance, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, or you can make it in 12/8. Either way, it's the eighth note, and it's called compound time, right?
Yes,
I said complex before. It's compound.
Compound
Get the
time,
right term. My terms were a little bit mixed up. But we have simple time, and then you got the compound. And almost all the music you will sing. That's why we're going to go, our drive, I guess our purpose, maybe I should use instead of drive, is to acquaint you with music that you're going to sing.
Yes.
And in most of the music we sing in what we call our fundamental Bible living churches, you have a hymn book. And let's not forget that we want to keep the hymn books. There are people trying to get rid of them.
Yeah, it's sad.
It's important for you, for what we are just now teaching you, to know why the hymn book is so important. So you cannot just see the melody, you can sing the part. If you can sing, you got a bass voice, you don't have to sing up in a high melody. If you're an alto, you can sing that, or if you're a tenor, you can sing that part. If you know what we've already shown you, and you've got the 4/4 and the 6/8, or the 2/4. Well, we didn't even mention 2/4. You can take the 4/4 and divide that in half. Then you put a top, then that top number becomes a 2 over the 4, because the quarter note is still, there are 2 of them in each measure. So you have 2 4s, or you can put 1 half note in that measure. You can do it all different ways. Or you could put da-dum for, you can divide it up however, and you have all that material that you can look in your book, look in your hymn book, and this is what we're going to talk about next with our next session, is the way to go from there then. Once you've got the intervals, once you've got the basic structure of the measures, and you can, like when I would teach this, and I don't know what you did, but it's nice. For instance, one year when I had the church became large. I started with 8 in my choir and 100 in the church, And then after many years, I forgot how many years it took it to grow that fast. I ended up, when I left, I know there were at least 2,500 in the congregation, 150 Excellent. In my choir.
Good.
But I realized there were a lot of people, even in the choir, who did not know who was what we've just talked about.
Yeah.
And so I decided one fall, and I took 3 months. I said, I'm going to start right after Labor Day. Mm-hmm. I'll be finished by Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. I want you to come for about an hour to an hour and a half mm-hmm. every Monday, and I will teach you everything you need to know so you can always be a contributor to the music here.
Good.
I had 90 people come.
Excellent.
And it changed the congregation. It changed my choir. People said, I never knew this before. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you explained it to me. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing right now is we're showing you, we've gotten with the pitches, mm-hmm. and you can do all the pitches. Mm-hmm. You can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know, you can do that. Or you can, by the way, it's so interesting. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You say, well, that's a hard interval. Well, we usually flat it, bring it down a half step, so it's a minor seventh. Mm-hmm. But there's only one song in all the hymn books that I know mm-hmm. that has that major seventh.
Major seventh? What is that?
Christ the Lord is risen today. Hallelujah. Sons of, there it is. It's the only place you have in the major, in the melody, uh-huh. have a major seventh.
Major seventh, wow.
You'll never find another one.
Yeah.
They're just not there. So you've got all the tools you need mm-hmm. to contribute to your choir. Good. And if you're a choir director, you need to take this, teach it to your people. And if you want to, again, we're going to put things down. You can contact us.
Good.
And see, give us, see, how do I do this? It's really very simple. Keep it as simple as you can. And mm-hmm. again, the principle is you proceed from what you already know.
Yes.
And that's just a basic principle.
Yeah, how do you
People,
understand
they say, I could never sing A6. I said, yes, you can. Mm-hmm. He lives. You've already done that. Mm-hmm. Now, if you know that song, then mm-hmm. apply it to what you're going to sing.
Good.
And they come in special places. There's usually an emphasis. Mm-hmm. You look at Handel's Messiah. Mm-hmm. When he's got a sixth in there, he's emphasizing something. Mm-hmm. Look with the Creation by Haydn. Mm-hmm. When he puts a sixth in, he's emphasizing something. Mm-hmm. And this is what we're trying to show you, that there are things that you probably already know and didn't realize you know, and you can spend the rest of your life still learning, and I've never learned it all. Tim and I are still learning.
Oh, yes. All the time.
And the more you teach, the more you learn.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do is to teach it to somebody else.
Yes. Yeah.
The best thing you can.
Yes.
Any of you choir directors, you congregational leaders, mm-hmm. talk to your congregation and say, let's have a session. Let me show you what I know.
Yeah. And
you teach it. And then they start asking you questions. You say, oh, okay, mm-hmm. let me explain that to you.
Yeah.
And then you learn more than they know.
Yep. Good. Well, and building on that, a way I like to think of the time signatures and how I teach it is I have a chart, which I'll show here on the screen so you can follow along. Because the time signatures, they actually are grouped in a couple different ways. First, we've talked about simple and compound. Yeah. But then also there are 2-beat measures, there are 3-beat measures, yes. and there are 4-beat measures. And so both in simple and compound, you have a 2-beat measure. You alluded to the 2/4 earlier. Yeah. That's the simple version. And then the 6/8 would be a 2-beat in compound. Because even though you're looking at 6, as we talked about before, you divide it by 3, that gives you 2. Yeah. So you have 2 groups with 3 beats each. Yeah. And then in the triple, or the 3-beat measure, you have a 3 on the top in simple, 3/4, because there are 3 quarter notes in there. Yeah. But then the 9/8 that we talked about before is the 3 version of compound. Because again, you're dividing 9 by 3. You get 3, so that's the 3 beats. And then the quadruple, or the 4-beat measure, is 4/4 that we started out with, and then we alluded to the 12/4, because again, divide 12 by 3, you get 4. And so I use that chart in my teaching, and I'm about to teach some new conducting students here in a week or so. That's going to be one of the very first things that I'll talk about with them, so that they have it organized in their head.
Then let me explain something a little bit more that you already know, and we need to tell people that, is when the song is slow. Mm-hmm. Down, 3, 4, 5, 6. You may want to just, if you're a conductor, just do it in 2 groups of 3.
Yes.
That'd be all right. I think it's best to know, and Tim, you can probably show a chart.
Sure.
Show how you would conduct 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yes.
Show them that.
Yep.
So if it's slow, that's the way you want to conduct it.
Right.
That shows any musician in your group, in your congregation or your choir, that you know what you're doing. If you need to do it just in 3s, if you're just learning, and Tim, you can teach that to your students.
Yeah.
But then, if the song goes fast, that's when you take like 6, 8, 1 and done 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You do it in 2. Or if it's in like Blessed Assurance, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you can, and when it's fast, then you do it in the other the patterns that you already learned, and then maybe somewhere along the line, as we're maybe on our next session talking about this, show those patterns again.
Yeah.
So conductors, if you're a congregational song leader or whatever you do, and there are little tricks you can use that we sure ought to show them too, that will help you to be a good conductor.
Yeah.
Okay?
Good.
So we'll go from there.
Good. Thank you.